Hey there champs, we have a double header today as we have two breaking news. As we all thought, if Jaime Munguia defeated John Ryder, he would be facing Canelo Alvarez next. But that's old news now, as we all know if Jaime Munguia beats John Ryder, he will not be fighting Canelo Alvarez next. He will be fighting David the Mexican Monster Benavidez. Now Munguia versus Canelo would have been a huge big fight. But so is Munguia versus David Benavidez. Actually, all three should fight anyways. All three fights are must-see TV and are worthy of pay-per-view events. And we also got the Ryan Garcia versus Oscar Duarte ticket sales. And let me tell you like this guys, for Mayweather to claim that Ryan Garcia is actually one of the faces of boxing, these ticket sales were underwhelming. And I don't believe that Ryan Garcia is as famous as he thinks he is, at least in the sport of boxing. But outside, he is very famous outside of boxing. And these are the two topics that we will be talking about next. But before we get into that, if you guys are not subscribed, please punch and knock out that subscription button. That way you'll never see it again. And ding that notification bell. That way you never miss any of my new boxing videos. Alright guys, let's get to the round. Ding, ding. Okay champs, let's get started. As we all know, boxing is the theater of the unknown. And sometimes there are last minute cancellations of fights and also last minute boxer replacements. And the news of boxing often changes very quickly because just last week the whole boxing world thought if Jaime Munguia beat John Ryder, he would be facing Canelo Alvarez next. And it was supposed to take place on Cinco de Mayo weekend, and everybody was excited for that fight because it's a big fight. And not just that, it wasn't Jaime Munguia who reached out to Canelo to make the fight happen. It was Canelo who reached out to Jaime Munguia to make the fight happen. So we actually thought it was a done deal because we all know Canelo really fights who he wants because he is one of the faces of boxing. So we all thought that was the next fight for Canelo. But shortly after, we all found out that Canelo was gonna go after Jermall Charlo. And that is the twin brother of Jermell Charlo, which Canelo just beat in a dominating fashion. But this Charlo is bigger and I think he is more skilled and stronger than Jermall Charlo, so it should be a good fight. And I believe his last fight was at 167, so that's only 1 pound from fighting at 168, so the weight shouldn't be an issue. So when Oscar de la Hoya found out about this, he knew that the Canelo fight was off the table. And now they are looking to put in Munguia versus David, the Mexican Monster, Benavidez. That's if Munguia gets past John Ryder, that is. Which I do believe Jaime Munguia will beat John Ryder. And they also invited David Benavidez to the John Ryder versus Jaime Munguia fight, hopefully to do a face-off after the fight. Now this will be a big fight and it will be must-see TV and pay-per-view worthy. And they want to make it for the month of June, but the actual date is yet to be determined. I actually see David Benavidez beating Jaime Munguia very convincingly. I am not exactly sure how, but maybe even stopping Munguia. I don't see anybody beating David Benavidez, maybe just Canelo, and not even. That could be a 50-50 fight and can go either way. But I don't see anybody else beating David Benavidez at 168. But if David Benavidez beats Canelo, I'm sure they're going to have a rematch. And if David Benavidez beats him again, I think he should move up to 175 and fight Bebo and Beterbiev. Because at 168, I don't see any more fighters challenging David Benavidez. Maybe David Morrell, but I believe he is too green right now. So if David Benavidez moves up to 175, Dave Morrell is big enough to also move to 175. I think Dave Morrell needs more experience and to make his name bigger to fight David Benavidez and to make it a really big fight. And if Dave Morrell waits and he keeps on winning, this fight can be as big as they come. I believe this fight could be on pay-per-view and it will be must-watch TV. but I can't wait for Jaime Munguia and John Ryder to fight to see if Benavidez will show off and if Munguia and Benavidez will do a face-off after the fight. But now moving on to other news, as we just found out that Golden Boy had released the ticket sales for Ryan Garcia versus Oscar Duarte. I personally believe they were a bit underwhelming, to say the least, considering that Money Mayweather, the king of pay-per-view and king of promotion, which he holds the most records for pay-per-views ever sold ever. He stated that there are only 3 faces of boxing that stick out, and that's Canelo Alvarez, Tank Davis, and Ryan Garcia. But the ticket sales says different. Ryan Garcia only sold 7,100 tickets, and the cheapest were $36 and the most expensive tickets were $500, and he only made $1 million at the gate. So he did not sell out the arena, and he fought in Texas where there's a lot of Mexicans. Now these are not A-side ticket sales, as Devin Haney sold 14,000 tickets and sold out the arena, and Devin Haney made almost $2 million at the gate, and not including the pay-per-view numbers, which I believe were 50,000, and Ryan Garcia was not on pay-per-view either. So that is 50,000 pay-per-views sold more than Ryan did. So I believe Devin Haney is a bigger star in boxing than Ryan Garcia is, because if Ryan Garcia was a big star, he should have put no-name fighters on pay-per-view and he would have done well. Now Tank Davis puts any fighter on pay-per-view, and they always do over 200,000 pay-per-view buys. Tank Davis could fight Southpaw 773 and they will sell over 200,000 pay-per-view buys. So Tank Davis' name holds weight for being one of the faces of boxing. The only thing that keeps Ryan Garcia in the talks of being the face of boxing is that him and Tank did sell 1.2 to 1.4 million pay-per-view buys, and also they made the 5th highest gate in boxing history. Now this is something Devin Haney has not accomplished yet, but if Haney does fight Tank, I'm sure this fight can match it or even beat it. Now Ryan Garcia is a lot more famous than any other boxer outside of boxing, but looking at these numbers, all the fans that he has outside of boxing are not translating into boxing. If the fans were translating, then he could have put Oscar Duarte on pay-per-view and he could have sold just like Tank does. But it seems if Ryan Garcia wants to sell well on pay-per-view, he will have to have another big name, and Tank Davis does not. He could fight anybody and sell well. So this makes Tank Davis a bigger star than Ryan Garcia is. And the only 2 fighters that actually stick out as the faces of boxing is Tank Davis and Canelo Alvarez. Ryan Garcia has a lot of fans outside of boxing, but it doesn't seem that they come to watch his fights. Who do you guys think will win, Jaime Munguia or John Ryder? Jaime Munguia beats Ryder. Who do you think will win, Jaime Munguia or David Benavidez? And what do you guys think about Ryan Garcia's ticket sales and Mayweather's comments of Ryan Garcia being one of the faces of boxing? Comment below and I'll write to everyone back. If you guys like the show, subscribe, like the video, share the video, and that's it for me, champs. I gotta roll.